Hi, I'm KT. Hyper is still bad, but now it's easier to hit stuff with it. Let me show you why. Welcome back to my workshop. Hyper's been out for about a month now, and more or less as I thought would happen in my last video about the Rush 40, it's not really catching on. Even though public nerfing is starting to come back, people are starting to be able to safely play games together, but most of that gaming is happening outdoors because we are still in a pandemic. This is the worst ammo to be shooting outdoors in the grass where they just drop in between the blades and get lost. That said, it's still worth looking into what we can get out of the hardware we've been given so far. The consensus seems to be that the Rush 40 is a little more consistent than the others, and its size compared to how much ammo it can carry is just awesome. The Siege 50 is significantly larger, but carries barely more ammunition than this. And the Mach 100 fires really erratically, no matter what people do trying to mod it so far. Probably the weirdest design choice that Hasbro made with this particular blaster is the omission of a hop-up tab. In rival blasters, a hop-up tab is a small plastic or rubber tab up in the top of the barrel that gives the ball a predictable spin, typically going this way on its way out. Early rival blasters lacked the hop-up tab, and there was a tendency for the rounds to go flying off in one direction or another, but when they added them in later blasters, they became more consistent. Why would they leave it out of their entry-level blaster in Hyper? Who knows? You can see in stock firing footage here of the Rush 40 that the rounds have a tendency to veer one way or the other by a few feet. It's a pretty wide margin of error when you're trying to hit a person at a decent distance. A few modders and parts designers immediately hopped on this problem and came up with 3D printable solutions that typically fit between the teeth in the barrel and create a hop-up tab. These have been created by Foamdemic and Detroit Dartworks. The ones I have are from Out of Darts. All of them insert in the same way. All of these offerings cost about $2 plus shipping for a finished printed product. Drac and his Foam Pro Shop also came up with a complete replacement muzzle, which replaces the entire front part of the blaster with a new muzzle that includes the hop-up built into it. That costs about $10. It's a slightly more involved modification, so if you're not comfortable getting inside your blasters, it probably doesn't make sense, but if you like the cleaner one-color look, it's definitely a good option. My Out of Darts hop-up tabs fit snugly enough that I had to use a small hammer to insert them into the barrel. Once they're in there, it's a satisfyingly permanent fit. They're definitely not just going to fall out on you during a game. And then I think the firing demo from after the modification speaks for itself. I'm shooting at a round catcher from about 30 feet, and as you can see, the balls seem to float to their target rather than falling off in random directions. The predictable spin on each round makes a world of difference, far more than you'd expect from a little $2 part. I've only had the opportunity so far to play with the Out of Darts hop-up. Jolt King 627 did a review of the Detroit Dartworks one. I'll link to that in the description. I haven't seen the Foamdemic one in action yet, but I've used their other 3D printed products, and I would absolutely recommend buying from them. Although the forms and the shapes of the bottom of the hop-up are slightly different between the different models based on the photographs that I've seen, I have a feeling they're going to all behave pretty similarly. That brings me kind of back to why Hyper isn't really catching on. After firing 80 rounds and then chasing down as many as I could, I still lost 20 rounds, and losing $4 of rounds for a short test doesn't feel great. I also had a lot of difficulties making sure the blaster would chamber and fire properly every round. Even though in the instructions it tells you to point it down or level while you're firing, I find that you not only have to point it down, but you have to give it a vigorous shake with every single round to make sure that one gets dislodged and falls into the breach. You get used to it after a while, but considering how many other blasters, including rival blasters, don't require that level of aggressive shaking, it can be pretty frustrating, and it's really an arm workout, especially if you're shooting 80 rounds in short succession. I also want to reiterate my statements from the previous video I did on the Rush 40. I think that the age 12 and up label on the box is accurate. The age labels on these products are not always accurate, but I find that this is too hard for small kids to prime consistently, and the ammo hits too hard, and you can't play with it inside. That said, if you have the right place in your play style and the right place to play where you can use this ammo and reasonably clean it up, I definitely recommend putting one of these hop-up tab add-ons in your Rush 40 and using that in the game. Watching the rounds float to their target and actually hit where you point them is really satisfying. They're pretty fun to play with when they start really going where you want them to. The blaster was reasonably accurate before, but the difference is definitely very significant when you add the hop-up tab. So whether you have a Rush 40 that you wish was more accurate or you're on the fence about getting into Hyper, I hope that this video was helpful to you. Let me know what you think about Hyper and whether you are going to be using it in games in your area. I know that it's already banned at pretty much all the games around me. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I hope to see you on the field.